You're watching All 24 News World News Program. Next up are the headlines. Despite a ceasefire, Zionist occupation airstrikes continue in Gaza Strip. UNRWA struggles as its facilities are destroyed, while Lebanon reports 331 killed in attacks since the truce. At the G20 summit in South Africa, Algerian Prime Minister Seif met President Ramaphosa as leaders push for solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Ramaphosa says limited access to financing is holding back progress on the SDGs. And later on, in Ukraine, President Zelensky plans to propose alternatives to the U.S. peace plan, while the Kremlin says Kiev has not confirmed negotiations, and the EU says it has not received Trump's plan. Welcome back. First off, in our news tonight, a Palestinian man was shot dead early Friday by Zionist occupation forces south of Khan Younis in southern Gaza Strip. Nasser Medical Complex says the victim, a displaced civilian, was targeted outside the yellow line and died from his wounds soon after. The killing comes as demolition operations continue inside the yellow line east of the city. UNICEF says at least 67 Palestinian children have been killed in Gaza since the ceasefire took effect. Speaking in Geneva, spokesperson Ricardo Perez said dozens more have been injured in the same period. He noted the figures amount to an average of 2 children killed each day since the truce began. UNRWA says its healthcare teams have now returned to northern Gaza. In a statement Friday, the agency warned they are operating with critically limited equipment after weeks of Zionist bombardment that destroyed UNRWA facilities and much of the surrounding infrastructure. Two Palestinian teenagers were shot and killed by occupation forces during a raid on the town of Kafr Aqab, north of the occupied Al-Quds. The Palestinian Red Crescent identified them as 18-year-old Amr Khalid Ahmed Al-Maryouh and 16-year-old Sami Ibrahim Sami Mashaykh. Separately, the occupation forces shot and killed a man in his 30s during a military raid west of Nablus in the occupied West Bank. According to Palestinian reports, occupation troops also raided the area on multiple occasions and bulldozed agricultural land south of the city. Lebanon's health ministry says 331 people have been killed and more than 945 wounded in Zionist attacks on Lebanese territory since the ceasefire began. In a statement Friday, the ministry said the deaths were recorded between November 28, 2024, the day after the agreement took effect, and November 19. It noted the figures underscored the continued escalation across several areas despite the ceasefire. Zionist occupation forces have renewed their movements inside Syria's Qanitra governorate, pushing into several villages near the ceasefire line. Local sources say a Zionist patrol entered the outskirts of Asha and Asbah in southern Qanitra on Friday before withdrawing. Turning to other news now, representing President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Prime Minister Seif took part Friday in a consultative meeting chaired by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on the eve of the G20 summit scheduled for Friday and Saturday in Johannesburg. The Prime Minister's office said the meeting, attended by heads of state and government of the African countries invited to participate in the summit, as well as officials of the continent's regional organizations, addressed the expected outcomes of the summit, particularly those related to the matters of interest to African countries. Similarly, and at the G20 Social Summit held just ahead of the leaders' meeting, participants zeroed in on key global concerns: digital inclusions, a just energy transition, climate justice, and sustainable financing. Delegates also underscored the need to build resilient, inclusive value chains to help protect vulnerable nations from growing instability in global markets, especially in trade.
From the heart of Johannesburg and the southern tip of the African continent, voices from youth, civil society and global leaders came together for the first ever G20 Social Summit. A landmark gathering that underscored a simple message: development and social justice aren't just the work of governments, they are a shared responsibility for all people.
The G20 Social Summit was very inspiring because we got the chance to actually speak and also have a discussion and give policy recommendations out there so that we could be recognized and our voice to be heard. And we speak on behalf of the youth of South Africa as well, and get a global footprint and get other youth globally to participate in this lovely initiative.
Over 3 days, the summit brought wide participation: youth groups, civil society organizations, parliamentarians, and even children, all offering practical ideas.
So I participated in the Children's 20, which is a branch of the G20, which allows children's voices to finally be heard at a conference of this magnitude. And we are at the declaration that we presented to the President today. Part of our declaration of what we wanted to strive for children was included in that. And I think just the fact that we are here as children, as the youth, finally being able to make our voices heard and give our contributions to the problems that plague society is really something really impactful, because we are the future generation. We are the ones who are going to inherit the world. And I think by contributing here and making our voices heard, it really can take great strides into improving our society and our global community as a whole.
I think the country is moving forward, and we thank the South African government who has made this possible at grassroots level to ensure that many of the civil societies, religious bodies, as well as political bodies all participate to ensure that the suggestions and solutions for South Africa is found so that we can chart our way forward.
The G20 Social Summit delivered a powerful message: a more inclusive, sustainable global governance system is possible, but only when every voice is heard and every community has a seat at the table. A call for a world where people everywhere help shape a better future.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa says rising political polarization, global poverty, ongoing conflicts, and the growing impact of climate change are undermining development across Africa. Closing the social summit ahead of the G20 leaders meeting, he warned that unequal wealth distribution and persistent gaps in global development financing are blocking the continent's progress toward the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. He reaffirmed his commitment to advancing the African Union's Agenda 2063. Stefano Palmieri, president of the European Economic and Social Committee, called for a global financial transaction tax to support the world's poorest. He also urged a shift toward a renewed multilateral system, one that is representative, transparent, and accountable to all, rather than a select few countries.
And we have to fight for equality in the world. It's not possible that 1% of the world population hold just half of a global wealth. That in 2023, the income of the 6 main digital corporations was $243 billion. I ask you, is that right?
Oxfam International's executive director Amitabh Bihar says the world's billionaires have added $2 trillion to their wealth this year alone, an amount he notes could lift 3.6 billion people out of poverty. Speaking at the close of the social summit in South Africa ahead of the G20, he warned that today's inequality emergency is driving a global crisis that threatens democracy and the hope of a fairer future.
That I also bring the voices of the most marginalized and excluded people who live pretty much on the margins of society. And I also hope, as an individual, I bring my voice of a person who's grown up in central India. Allow me to just take you back to the end of Second World War. What we saw was obviously enormous pain, sorrow, horror, but from there, from the debris of the end of the war, we also saw a promise for a better future. It was also the time when we saw the end of colonial empires.
Algeria's Minister of Knowledge, Economy, Startups and Microenterprises Noureddin Wadah says the upcoming 4th African Startup Conference will carry a distinctive character, especially after President Abdelmajid Tebboune's decision to launch a fund supporting young Africans in driving the continent's economy. Speaking on All 24 News channel, he said the December 6 to 8 gathering will reaffirm Algeria's leading role in the sector and give young Africans a platform to innovate, launch ventures, and take initiative.
We
are 2 weeks away from the 4th edition of the African Startup Conference, which will take place from December the 6th to the 9th in Algiers as usual. This edition is particularly special, especially following the decision of the President of the Republic to launch a dedicated fund to support African youth and strengthen their contribution to the African economy. This initiative comes following the Intra-African Trade Fair 2025. Algeria was the first to take such a step back in 2022, and this edition will once again reaffirm Algeria's pioneering role in this field, particularly at the political level. Today, Algeria's roadmap, adopted during the first edition in 2022, has become an official African Union document for startup development, as well as for empowering youth in the field of innovation, entrepreneurship, and initiative-taking.
Minister Wadah says the continent's largest technology event will host around 25,000 participants and over 200 exhibitors from 50 African countries.
This African event has become the largest technology gathering on the continent. We expect around 25,000 participants, more than 200 exhibitors from 50 African countries, 200 experts, and over 150 investors. This edition will shed light on African and Algerian success stories and will clarify the picture for the Algerian and African youth that today in Africa, you can start with just an idea and build a $100 million worth technological company, as has happened in Algeria, Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, and other leading countries in the region. This edition will showcase the biggest African success stories. At the same time, on the political side, we will take the opportunity to exchange expertise with the largest African ecosystems and produce an official document summarizing what Algeria and other countries have done in terms of supporting startups, launching innovation funds, issuing a legal framework for startups, the unification of the African market, and all the tax and fiscal initiatives that have been implemented in Algeria and other countries.
The Algerian minister added that the African Startup Conference is the continent's only platform uniting efforts and initiatives between African governments, experts, and stakeholders, especially amid the global surge in AI development. Moving on to a different note, Algeria's ambassador to the Netherlands, Salim Abdelhaq, stressed that commemorating national events through diplomatic missions helps promote Algeria's rich history and strengthen the connection between the Algerian community abroad and their homeland. Speaking at a ceremony hosted at the Algerian Embassy in The Hague to mark the 71st anniversary of the Algerian Liberation Revolution, Salim Abdelhaq linked the revolution's values to Algeria's foreign policy under President Abdelmajid Tebboune's leadership.
Today we marked the 71st anniversary of Algeria's glorious revolution in a ceremony that drew a large and diverse audience. Ambassadors from across all continents were present, along with representatives of international organizations based here in The Hague, as well as Dutch officials and institutions. We also reaffirm our readiness to work diligently under the leadership of President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune.
قيادة السيد رئيس الجمهورية عبد المجيد تبون.
I would like to congratulate the ambassador of Algeria and her team on the National Day of her country. It's a wonderful reception, and I have to say the German permanent representation and the Algerian embassy here in The Hague are wonderfully cooperating.
Opportunity to say congratulations to the brother people of Algeria in celebrating the 71st anniversary of their revolution. This is a very important occasion, not just for Algeria, but for us as South Africa as well, because Algeria and South Africa have so much in common.
The Foreign Bank of Algeria opened on Thursday 3 new branches in France, located in Saint-Denis, Courcelles, and Marseille, as part of its international expansion strategy. The ceremonies were attended by bank officials and members of the Algerian community in France. Mariam Zian reports now.
After receiving authorization from the European Central Bank last January to operate as a commercial bank in France and across Europe, the Foreign Bank of Algeria moved quickly to launch its expansion plan by opening 3 branches in France. The step aims to provide integrated banking services between Algeria, France, and Europe.
We officially inaugurate 3 new 100% owned branches in France located in Saint-Denis, Courcelles, and Marseille. With this step, the Foreign Bank of Algeria enters a pivotal phase in its strategy to strengthen its presence in international markets and expand abroad.
The move strengthens the bank's international presence and supports foreign trade, investment, and Algerian communities abroad, while improving the business environment for economic operators and investors. It also contributes to enhancing the global competitiveness of Algerian banks and to modernizing the national banking system.
The launch of these branches represents a historic moment in the bank's journey, an essential milestone in our path toward international expansion. Ranked in 2025 among Africa's top 10 banks, the Foreign Bank of Algeria continues to play its role in supporting economic growth and providing innovative financial solutions to its clients, relying on customer confidence, the competence of its teams, and its ability to anticipate transformations within the banking sector.
The new branches answer a clear demand for a banking partner close to investors and foreign trade operators, one that understands their needs and can deliver fast, effective services. The move also reflects the Algerian president's call to accelerate the bank's international expansion, a push that has gathered pace in recent years. With this step, the Foreign Bank of Algeria opens a new chapter in its journey, driven by ambition, closer ties to its clients, and innovation in financial services.
Moving on to the war in Sudan, the Sudanese army says it repelled a major attack by the Rapid Support Forces on its positions in the city of Baba Noussa in West Kordofan. Separately, the army announced its forces have taken full control of the strategic Hawi area in West Kordofan as well. Military sources say their troops are now advancing on the last RSF strongholds in the state. Sudan's General Coordination of Camps for Displaced Persons says more than 7 million people are now internally displaced in Darfur. Spokesperson Adam Rajal told All24 News that ongoing wars have destroyed health, service, and education systems, creating one of the world's worst humanitarian crises.
The ongoing displacement has torn the country apart and led to the collapse of health, public service, and education institutions, creating one of the world's most severe humanitarian crises. 2/3 of the population now urgently require humanitarian assistance, whether in IDP camps or within host communities in rural areas and villages. The number of internally displaced persons in Darfur has exceeded 7 million, alongside host communities that are themselves struggling under extreme pressure. The situation is rapidly deteriorating as displacement continues and needs within the camps intensify.
The UN mission in the DRC says the Allied Democratic Forces killed 89 civilians in eastern DRC over a week of attacks. MINUSCA reported that between November 13 and 19, the ADF carried out extremely bloody assaults in Libero territory, North Kivu, including Babiri and Baswaja, leaving at least 20 women and an unknown number of children among the dead. Elsewhere in Africa, unidentified armed groups have kidnapped 52 students from a Catholic boarding school in Niger State, central Nigeria. Local media reported that attackers stormed St. Mary's School in Agwara between 1 and 3 a.m. local time, seizing students, teachers, and staff. This is the second school kidnapping in the country in just 1 week. Look in Eastern Europe now. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will propose alternatives to the U.S. plan to end the war with Russia, pledging to defend his country's interests. In a televised address Friday, he warned Kiev would face a stark choice: compromise its dignity or risk losing a key partner, hinting at a potential strains with Washington over the peace plan.
The national Ukrainian interest must be taken into account. We're not making loud statements. We will calmly work with America and all partners. There will be a constructive search for solutions with our main partner. I will present arguments, I will convince and offer alternatives, but we will definitely not give the enemy a reason to say that Ukraine does not want peace, that it is the disrupt in the process, and that Ukraine is not ready for diplomacy.
For his part, Russian President Vladimir Putin says Moscow has received the U.S. peace proposals for Ukraine and views them as a potential basis for resolving the conflict. Speaking at a government meeting, he warned that Russia could seize more Ukrainian territory if Kiev rejects the plan, noting that the U.S. has been unable to secure Ukraine's agreement. The Kremlin says Moscow has not yet received Kiev's approval to negotiate Trump's peace plan for Ukraine. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters Friday that Russia has not been informed of President Zelensky's agreement to the U.S. proposal and stressed that Moscow is ready to negotiate only as a key party at the table.
The Russian side remains committed to the results of discussions that took place in Anchorage. We know about possible modifications of approved formulas, but we have not received anything officially. Moreover, we learned some things from media first, thought our contacts do not stop, and we never stopped them.
The European Union says it has not yet officially received U.S. proposal or U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to end the war in Ukraine, but plans to discuss it at the G20 summit in Johannesburg. European Council President Antonio Costa confirmed Friday that the EU has not formally received the plan. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen added that Trump's 28-point proposal will be reviewed at the G20 and in talks with President Zelensky. The war in Ukraine is intensifying on the country's southwestern front, where Russian forces have encircled 5,000 Ukrainian soldiers. Kiev has confirmed casualties, while the Russian Defense Ministry says it intercepted 33 drones in the area. Samayeri has the story.
Russia and Ukraine issued conflicting battlefield claims on Friday as heavy fighting continued along the Eastern Front, with both sides exchanging attacks on territories.
Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said around 5,000 Ukrainian soldiers were encircled on the Oskil River's eastern bank, arguing that Russia's recent battlefield advances should prompt Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to negotiate.
I also wanted to draw your attention to the left bank of the Oskil River. There is one more large enemy group trapped there, and it's big enough, around 5,000 troops.
Peskov echoed comments made by President Vladimir Putin during a briefing, claiming Ukrainian commanders had issued no instructions for encircled troops to surrender, accusing Kyiv's leadership of neglecting its soldiers.
We understand what the political leadership of Ukraine is. It is no longer a political leadership. This group of individuals, an organized criminal group, which seized power and since last March maintained this power in Ukraine for its own personal enrichment, under the pretext of continuing the war with Russia.
Ukraine, on the other side, reported striking a Russian oil refinery, continuing its strategy of targeting infrastructure supporting Moscow's war effort. By early Friday, Russia said it had intercepted 33 Ukrainian drones overnight across 5 regions, Crimea and the Black Sea. Late Thursday, Ukraine announced that a Russian attack on the southeastern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia killed 6 people and wounded others.
Many people and rescue teams arrived to clear away the debris. There was a body here. As reported, 4 people were killed. The hit was directly there.
Nearly 4 years into the conflict, Russian forces continue to advance slowly and now control about 19% of Ukraine's territory. Moscow insists that the regions of Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia are legally part of Russia, a claim rejected by Kyiv and Western governments. In June 2024, Putin outlined his terms for any settlement, demanding Kyiv abandon plans to join NATO and withdraw from all 4 regions claimed by Moscow.
Moving on to a different matter. 2 weeks after being elected as mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani was received by U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House. Following their meeting, both Trump and Mamdani called their discussion productive, despite sharp political divergences. Trump congratulated Mamdani on what he described as an incredible race and said the 2 men shared a commitment to improving life in the country's largest city.
Just had a great meeting, a really good, very productive meeting. We have one thing in common. We want this city of ours that we love to do very well. And I wanted to congratulate the mayor. He really ran an incredible race against, a lot of smart people, starting with the early primaries against some very tough people, very smart people. And he beat them easily, and I congratulated him.
I appreciated the meeting with the president, and as he said, it was a productive meeting focused on a place of shared admiration and love, which is New York City, and the need to deliver affordability to New Yorkers, the 8.5 million people who call our city their home, who are struggling to afford life in the most expensive city in the United States of America.
And that wraps up our news program for tonight. Thank you for watching. See you next time.